Kaiser folks, most people who plan their retirement do it based on hunches and gut feeling, which isn't really a plan. At work, you follow data informed processes when you're treating your patients. You want to treat your retirement the same way. So, in this video, this is what I want to accomplish. But no spreadsheets, no hype, just 5 data backed decisions from recent 2025 research to help you raise your odds of retiring sooner and retiring better. Today, I'm going to focus on 5 key stats, and I'm going to turn them into a simple 6-step checklist that you can use and finish as early as this week. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start planning based on solid evidence, let's get to work. Now, what if you had to stop working 3 years earlier than you expected, like tomorrow? No warning. Could your plan handle it? Now, one of the findings from the JP Morgan retirement study found that or looked at managing expectations around when you think you're going to retire. The study showed that 70% of workers today expect to retire at age 65 or later. In reality, only 28% of people actually made it to that point. They ended up retiring sooner. In fact, when they looked at the median retirement age, the expected retirement age median was 65, but the median actual age of retirement was 62. So people are retiring earlier than they expect. Now, why is that? And there's a couple of categories of reasons. On the positive side, 39% of them said that it was because they could afford to. And my guess is that, like you, they're doing the work. They started thinking about retirement planning. They started doing the work, meeting with someone, asking the right questions, collecting the data, and they realized that they were in a better financial position than they realized and that they could make it work. On the flip side is a couple of reasons that jumped out. 2 main categories. 32% of respondents mentioned things like downsizing at work that forced them to retire early. And then 31% said health reasons or disability. So those were some of the reasons why they retired a little bit earlier. And I think the main takeaway here is that you do not have complete control over when you retire. And so it's worth considering building a gap plan that includes a few things like building up a 6-month emergency fund of cash while you're still working, and also starting to build a little bit of a war chest in your 401k where you start to put some money in more conservative, stable investments like bonds to build a little bit of a reserve for yourself as you approach that retirement age. Another thing that you want to look at is disability insurance, long-term disability, and then also map out coverage options for if you do end up retiring earlier, like around that median age of 62 before Medicare kicks in, what are your healthcare coverage options available to you? Now, if there's a 73% chance that either you or your spouse lives to age 90, what breaks first in your plan? The money or your confidence? One of the areas of the study looked at life expectancy probabilities. And if we focus in on married couples who are non-smokers and in good health, what it showed is that if you're age 65 today, you have a 90% chance of either you or your spouse living till age 90, age 85. You have a 73% chance that one of you or your spouse lives till age 90. Now, keep in mind that life expectancy is a midpoint. It's not an endpoint. So for some people, it's going to be sooner than that. And for others, it's going to be later. And that's the bigger problem that we want to solve for in a retirement plan. So a few things to consider. One is you can raise the income floor in your retirement income plan by delaying Social Security as long as you can financially to make sure that you get a bigger check down the road that will, and with those COLA increases, will take care of you and help reduce that risk of you running out of money in retirement. The other thing you can do is stay in ahead of inflation by keeping a portion of your portfolio invested for long-term growth, things like stocks, good growth stock mutual funds. And then finally, as you look at either scenario where one of you goes first, you want to build your plan around the more vulnerable surviving spouse so that you know that they're going to be okay. Now, what if a single 1% switch could add 6 figures to your net worth in the future? If that's the case, why do so many Kaiser employees leave that off? And what I'm talking about here is the benefits of auto-escalation when it comes to your contributions. Now, many of my clients are baby steppers who are putting in 15% of their income towards retirement accounts. But a lot of people maybe can't get to that point, at least not right away. So what can you do as an alternative? Well, one of my favorite charts from the JP Morgan study looks at a couple of different scenarios and maps that out for you and gives you, I think, a good roadmap to build a plan. Now, in the study, there's a great chart that shows essentially three different scenarios of contribution plans over a 40-year period. Now, think of these as three different employees, all starting at age 25 with a starting salary of $50,000. And they each have wage growth of 2.4% on average, an average annual growth rate of 2.4%, and an average annual investment return of 7.25%. Now, with the first employee who's displayed in blue, they start at 3%, put in a flat 3% per year, and they grow that to $930,000 by the time they turn 65. And for the person that's depicted in purple, that person has put in 10% per year, and by the time they turn 65, that grows to $2.3 million. Pretty big difference there. Now, what's interesting is the line in green, which represents the person who starts out at 3% at age 25, but then they crank up that contribution by 1% per year. So in 7 years, they're now putting in 10% like that person in purple, and they've grown their money by the time they turn 65 to $2.1 million. So pretty close to that person that was putting in 10% a year. So what this shows is that, like with so many good habits in other areas of life that we see, you don't have to get it perfect right away to get started. Just get started, and then you can keep improving along the way. And it shows that you get the same benefit just about of the person that put in that 10 or 15% from the get-go. So the key lesson here, start early, avoid taking loans if possible, and keep cranking that up until you get to that ideal contribution rate. Now, are you paying a tax you don't need to simply because you chose the wrong contribution type this year? Now, one of my other favorite charts from this study points out the trade-offs between a traditional and a Roth account based on age as well as taxable income. And when you look at the chart, what you can see is that early on in your career, when you're young and your income is lower and you're expecting your income to be higher in the future, you can take advantage of those lower tax brackets with a Roth account. Because remember, investing is a long-term game. And when you start to put that money in early in your life in the Roth account, you're going to have a lot more time for compounding to do its magic. Now, later on in your career, as your age and your income climbs, then the pre-tax accounts are going to look a lot better because you're able to, the opportunity cost is going to be a lot higher at that stage. And you're able to defer your taxes at a higher tax bracket, knowing that later on in retirement, you're going to be able to pull that money out at a lower bracket. Now, the timeline on the chart divides your life between just working years and retirement years. But I would put in a third category that runs from age 59 and a half to age 73 when those RMDs kick in, because those are the prime years where you can take advantage of some proactively doing some Roth conversions. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, it allows you to retire a little bit sooner. You can start to draw down from those pre-tax accounts, buy back some years of retirement years for your life when you're younger and more mobile and healthy, and you're able to actually enjoy the money. And then the other reason is it's going to reduce your balance later on when those RMDs kick in and you have to start to take some money out of those accounts. So a good rule of thumb from this chart is that if you're in the 10 or 12% bracket, the Roth accounts are going to look more attractive. If you're in the 32, 37% bracket, the traditional accounts are probably going to be a better bet. And if you're in the 22, 24% bracket in the middle there, either one is going to work for you. And so you can go with your preference in terms of going with the traditional or going with the Roth option. So what if your first 3 years of retirement are your most expensive? Can you stay calm if your spending spikes by 20%? One of the data points in the study looked at spending volatility in retirement, and it found among new retirees that 60% of them said that they saw a spending spike of about 20% or more in the first 3 years of retirement compared to the year prior to retirement. Now, this wasn't just an early retirement problem, because they looked at retirees who were around age 75 to 80, and half of them saw a 20% spike in their retirement at any given year. And so what this shows is that even though we see a long-term trend of declining spending throughout retirement, you can have these years where spending spikes. Now, sometimes it could be for a good reason, like you want to take the family on a Disney cruise, or it could be something unexpected, like yeah, you have to replace the HVAC system or the roof around at the house, or someone has to go into long-term care. So a good proactive approach is to use a bucket strategy where you have three buckets: one for cash that's equal to 12 months of essential living expenses, a war chest bucket of near-term bonds, and then your last bucket for long-term growth. And what you're doing there is also aligning your fixed income spending coming from things like a pension, social security, and annuities to your essential spending, and then having the money in your investments then take care of the spending flexes from year to year. And then this is also where I'd also throw in, this is one of the benefits of proactive Roth conversions over time. Whenever you get these unexpected expenses that pop up, it's great to have a bucket to pull from without having to worry about a big tax bill. So again, long-term trend, declining spending in retirement, but expect to spend a little bit more early on and then have a proactive approach to deal with unexpected spikes in spending throughout retirement. Okay, so the study has a lot more data in there. I just picked out a few key highlights, but I think what it does is it shows you the difference between expectation and reality. And the bigger the gap that is, the bigger the risk you're taking. And so these data points will help you to start to build a solid plan. And so what I want to do though now is give you a simple 6-step checklist that you can work through this week so that you can start to build your plan and get on track right away. First thing is, are you taking full advantage of the employer match? And if not, go ahead and get that taken care of. Next is, if you're not putting in that 15% of your income towards your 401k, then at the very least, let's get the auto-escalate option turned on and get that going for us. Next, review your 401k portfolio. Are you still stuck in that default fund from day one when you first started? Or do we need to tweak that portfolio to align to your target retirement age? Next is reviewing the contribution types, talking about the tax situation, traditional versus Roth. What is your current setup? And then set a couple of reminders to review your tax situation. I'd recommend one in March in the height of tax season, and then again in October. You want to take a look at your tax picture, look at your pay stubs, and do an updated tax projection so that you can then review and see, does it make sense then to continue to do the traditional or the Roth option, or do you need to make a change based on where your income is landing? If you're going to have a role change in the next 6 to 12 months, make sure that it's not going to negatively impact you regarding your vesting. Make sure that you're fully vested in your 401k and your pension benefits so that if you do change status, change positions, that it's not going to impact you in a negative way. And then lastly, emergency fund. We want to build that up as soon as possible. If you're working a long way off from retirement, a good target is 6 months of living expenses. As you get closer to retirement, it's a good idea to bump that up to 12 months of living expenses. Now, if it's going to take you some time to build up that emergency fund, then one thing that you can do in the meantime, at least, is allocate a portion of your 401k to bonds so that you have at least a bucket of cash that's safe and conservatively invested, so that in the event that you need to take a hardship withdrawal or a 401k loan, you know you have at least some money there that you can tap into. So those are the 6 items. You can get started on this, and you're going to be just ahead of the game and ahead of so many people in terms of just being on track to an earlier and better retirement. So if you want to dive deeper into the 401k benefits that you have and make sure that you're getting the most out of it, you'll see a link below to a PDF that I created that goes over the 9 common mistakes that healthcare workers make with their 401k plan and what you can do to fix them. And then you can also check out this video where I dive deeper into the choice between the traditional and Roth options and how getting that wrong can not only cost you in just thousands of dollars of unnecessary taxes that you're going to pay, but also delaying retirement years longer than you need to. So go ahead and check that out.